In an armed robbery, purposeful compliance is useful, but you gotta know when it's go time no matter what. Hi everyone, welcome to today's research-informed defensive lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host, John Correa. Today's video comes to us from Jhajjar in India. Today's video is brought to us by Mantis. The Mantis family of products is integral to ASP staff building handgun and carbine skills and are your most economical and fastest path to improvement in your skills too. Whether you choose the X10, the Laser Academy, the Blackbeard, or use them all in concert, they will help your practice be more effective, efficient, and fun. Go check them out, pick up a unit, and thank them for sponsoring today's video. Shopkeeper's just checking through his till. You're gonna watch a guy come over from the right, and he is immediately going to announce an armed robbery and pick a gun up. And then the news story I've linked in the description says he tries to pull the trigger and it doesn't work. So our shop owner pulls his own gun, shoots 3 times at the robber, hits him twice, once in the hand and once in the waist. Watch it again. You're going to see the guy come in and watch immediately that he tries to pull the trigger and it doesn't work. So he starts futzing with the gun. So our guy pulls his own gun. Now, the news story I've linked in the description says the cops did catch the guy because he was shot a couple of times, again, once in the waist and once in the hand. And it says that the police actually gave this shop owner a reward for serving his community. And that's the first of those that I have ever heard of. Props to them for that. Thankfully, our Shopkeep was not hurt. Our bad guy did have an accomplice that wrote off that I didn't see anything about him being caught. Hey, this is just a reminder from me to you that the principles that we teach here at Active Self-Protection are just that, principles. You're going to have to internalize them and apply them how the circumstances come out in your incident if, God forbid, you ever have one. So the details matter, how it actually rolls out matters, and that's why we teach a principle-based approach so that you can apply the principles to the situation you find yourself in. Remember, as a self-defender, you are always on defense. That means you are responding to what's in front of you. If you're not on defense, then you're on offense, and therefore you're not the defender, you're the offender. You don't want to be that, right? So what I mean by that is you're always going to be behind an initiative deficit. So make sure that you're ready on that day because you're going to be at an initiative deficit, and think through these mental situations. In this case, a clerk was ready because he had his gun ready and waiting for him. Now, of course, he doesn't want to use that, right? He just wants to go about his day serving his clients, his customers, and running his business successfully, just like you and I do. And I don't want these videos to make you paranoid or make you, distrust people or anything like that, just to be prepared on that day. And that means keep your gun on your person. Now, I know we're going to see here that he is going to draw a gun from behind the counter and it works. And success is a heck of a deodorant. But we see an awful lot of times that makes for a lot of big problems. So I'd strongly recommend that you keep the gun on your person so that if you get up from the desk, you still have that means of protection. So if the bad guy starts his armed robbery and you're not sitting at the desk, you still have access to your defensive tools. This is a pretty big deal. It's like leaving a gun in the car, right? The second you get out of the car, it's no longer good for you. It may as well be in Narnia. So it worked out here. Okay, fine. And having it available is better than not having it available. And we see a fair number of these. But I'd still strongly recommend that it be on your person. So then that way, no matter where you are in your shop or in your car or in your home, you have it available to you. Our clerk did exactly that. Now, that said, you're on defense. So you're going to be responding to what happens in front of you. So when our perpetrator, our armed robber, comes in and then threatens with a firearm, the right answer here is what we call purposeful compliance. Because as a general rule, armed robbers use their firearms as intimidation tools, right? So if he wanted to kill you, well, we kind of see that in this particular case. But as a general rule, they don't just start pressing the trigger. If they just start pressing the trigger and the gun functions, you're out of luck, friend. And I hope your relationship with Jesus is strong because you're going to need it in that moment. But what we see instead is they use it as an intimidation tool. And so finding the opportunity to get ahead is very important because you are here what we call drawing from the drop because he has the drop on you if you try to draw right here. He's got his eyes on you and the gun on you. If you try to draw a gun here, you cannot outdraw his trigger press. So armed resistance here, looking for an opportunity to get ahead, very, very smart. Just drawing wantonly and going, well, I'm faster than you. Man, I see people get shot doing that way too often, and I don't recommend it. So the answer is Purposeful compliance, or even what I've heard called malicious compliance, looking for an opportunity to get ahead. I prefer purposeful compliance myself. So then that way, when you get to go, you go. Now, in this case, on the other hand, you see what happens is he kind of pulls around and he does this thing that we just see very seldom, which is just kind of immediately come, press the trigger, and then the gun doesn't work. And that's why you see him start joining his hands. He presses the trigger, the gun doesn't fire. And that's, again, according to the news stories I've linked in the description, he tried to fire and the gun misfired. And then he puts his hands together. Now, if he starts firing at you or trying to fire at you, now the time for purposeful compliance is done. You are in a gun fight. This guy is wanting to kill you with this gun. So you got to do whatever it is you need to do to stop that. And that means you got to get your gun out and in the fight. Now, of course, rule number one of gunfighting, have a gun, right? And so if you're not carrying your gun, you don't have a gunfight. You might get in a shooting, but you're not going to get in a gunfight. This guy had his gun on him, so he is doing okay, and he is going to be able to actually have a gunfight. So please hear me. You only get told about your defensive encounter at the last minute. The bad guy's not going to telegraph. So you got to carry your gun all the time. So then that way you have it in that moment, because you're not going to get advance notice of it. Thankfully, he did in this particular case. Now, his draw here from the table, from behind to underneath the counter, you watch him, he throws his, the drawer closed, goes and grabs the gun, gets his out and gets a shot off in exactly 1.5 seconds if his go signal is the bad guy getting the click and then starting to put his hands together. And a 1.5 second draw is the professional standard. Remember, a 2.0 is the standard of a concealed carrier. The 1.5 is a professional standard, like, an FBI agent, somebody who carries a firearm professionally for a living, 1.0 being the expert standard. And that will give you different looks when things go bad. Now, you notice here a couple of things. Is that 1.5 means the bad guy was still in very close proximity to him when his first shot broke. Very close, like maybe, 3, 4, 5 feet away. I also want to note here, he barely hit him. He's not using his sights. If you look here, his gun is well below his sights. He's just kind of pointing at him, and he doesn't get fight-stopping hits. He did hit him once in the hand, and he also hit him, according to the news story, in the waist. So in the abdomen. That guy was still able to run off and was still trying to fire his gun behind him, again, according to the news story, but thankfully the gun malfunctioned. Had the gun not malfunctioned while he was fleeing again, our Shopkeep would have been in a bad way. So I know people say, well, I like to have this little belly gun. It's very close. Well, you still need to use your sights, guys. And I've seen this a couple of times recently that people are like, well, I carry this little revolver because, it's a gun that I can just stick in his ear, and so I don't have to aim it. That's not how real gunfights go. Real gunfights aren't up that close and personal. What we see far more often is this, that the shooting might start at 3, 4, 5 feet, but it opens up to 5, 10 yards pretty quickly because bad guys don't like getting shot. And so they open up distance very reliably when the shooting starts. And that means you have to have marksmanship skills. He's only got a 5-shot revolver there. He fired 3 rounds, so he still had enough in the gun in order to do what he did. But man, if the accomplice to our bad guy shows up and wants to fight, that could be a problem. He had a very limited ability to fight that second bad guy. So please hear me, 2 hands on the gun, use your sights. You want to train not just getting the gun out and firing in the direction of a threat, because even here from 3, 4, 5 feet, it's not hard to miss. And it's really hard to miss fast enough to win a gunfight, okay? So what I really want you to think about here is getting accurate hits, high center chest. I really want you thinking about that kind of 8-inch circle around the pumps and the pipes, because that will reliably put him down. That fibs factor will make him stop wanting to fight you and not pressing the trigger and not getting after you again and anymore, and then let you deal with whatever problems still exist in your space. Whereas these kinds of hits, yes, he hit him in the hand, yes, he hit him in the waist, and that guy kept running off, but he was still a deadly threat for a significant amount of time. So get that gun in 2 hands up in your line of sight and use those bumpy things on top to get those high center chest hits. And don't rely on that stuff of, well, I'm just going to stick it in his ear in the moment, because you're almost certainly not going to get to do that, or stick it up his nose, or I'm going to put it in his belly button. That's not how real gunfights happen. What we really see is the shooting starts when there's some distance between us. And unless you're a vice cop doing vice cop things, private citizens just don't get into those kinds of gunfights. So be prepared for that. Now, finally, Our good guy then is going to fire 3 shots at him, drive the guy off. He wins. Then he's going to go around the counter to go and investigate a little bit more fully. Now, if you've been a fan of the channel for any length of time, you know that I don't recommend this because we've seen multiple instances that we've covered here on the channel of good guys going out into that space and being killed out there because you don't know what the accomplices are doing. You don't know if he's able to clear that malfunction. If you knocked him over with the first one, he's not running off anymore, but he's still got a gun in his hand and he's willing to turn it on you. You've already paid at risk of your life to establish dominance in the space you're in. Consolidate that dominance, own that space, get on the phone with the cavalry and get yourself into a defensible bunkered position if you possibly can, rather than going outside and going into a whole new space where you have to pay again in order to establish dominance, right? You take the risk one more time, you roll that roulette wheel one more time, and boy, you might end up coming out on the bottom on that and not on the top. And I don't want that for you, okay? Now, that said, I really think our good guy here, his draw and shot was pretty fast. He went when he had to go because the guy started shooting at him. So he did enough good things that he won his fight, and I'm very proud of him for that. I got no concern for this armed robber. He put the quarter in the jukebox, so he gets to dance to the tune. It looks like he ended up, living through this. That's fine. We don't care about that. We care about them stopping their assaultive behavior, and that did work on this. I really do think have the gun on your person. That gives you a better and more margins for success, more opportunities for success. Make sure you're using the sights, guys, and 2 hands on the gun because that would have more reliably covered his asp.